Welcome back to the Flip Side. It's time for Fast Five, where our three panelists talk about 5 topics in 7 short minutes. Let's kick it off. Ron, the county government has ordered mandatory sexual harassment and civility training for commissioners and employees. What say you?
I think in the modern times, in the modern era, that should be a requirement for everybody. I don't think it should be just directed at the county commissioners. I think a lot of different organizations should do the same thing.
But I think a lot of organizations, I know that in the businesses that I've worked for before, we had something along those lines of
And how'd that work out? Business community's just as guilty of this thing as the county and as the stars in Hollywood.
Well, for the record, I don't think anybody's guilty of anything at this point because
No, I didn't say they were guilty. I'm just saying, as the reports come out, this is a worldwide issue.
It is, and in my mind, regardless of training, those who think they can get away with it are going to try and get away with it. Danielle?
I have to say, I'm really shocked that an employer of this size has not yet already had this requirement, to your point,
Have you
Ron.
had employers in the past that have required that?
Every single one.
Okay. I thought maybe I was...
I think every single one. I mean, whether it was like, some sort of online training
Right.
or something that you had to attend on an annual basis.
And
And
my-
it's to protect the employer.
And not to date myself, but mine started back in like the early 2000s, maybe late 1990s. I mean, this is not something that's really new.
And I don't really know if at this day and age it's training. I guess in my mind it feels like common sense, or it should be common sense in the workplace. But again, I think for the protection of the employer, it's the right thing to do in cases that come up.
Well, the reality is that nobody, male, female, nobody should be harassed and have to go to work in those type of environments. Now, the problem is, on the opposite end, you may have people that stretch the definition to something that maybe really isn't sexual harassment. So that's the other
That could be,
potential.
yes.
So, I mean,
Right.
I see there's
Defining it
problems on
somewhat.
both ends, but okay.
But it should have started years ago. I think
It
the
should
human
have.
resource directors, that should be something that human resource directors go to training someplace. That should be a requirement for a human resource director wherever to ensure that it's done.
Right.
Agreed.
So, Danielle, when I was a young child, I had bed rails on the side of my bed because I had a propensity to fall out of bed in the middle of the night. And I remember having those for many years, and at some point I must have stopped moving around so much, so we took the bed rails off and I no longer fell out of the bed. Senator Serafini has introduced a bill, or wants to introduce a bill about doing bed rails at nursing homes, which I guess I can see the benefit of, and he's hitting resistance. Ron, why would he hit resistance on that?
Well, to me, I think it's a common sense deal. People can roll out of bed and not get hurt. People can climb over rails, fall out and break their neck. So there's problems. When my dad was passing away in the final moments, he actually tried to crawl out of the bed that he was in. If he would have fallen, he would have fallen on the floor. If you have bed rails, I can see bed rails becoming a tremendous problem for somebody trying to crawl out over them and really getting hurt.
So you're saying it's not as simple as what I would make it?
I'd say it's not as simple. He found opposition, and I think opposition was due.
I agree
Danielle?
and believe it should be optional depending on what the patient's condition is. So.
Or their caregiver, or their
Right.
family, or whatever. If they want a rail, put a rail in.
Okay. Topic number 3, flu infections continue to rise, and we've had a couple of deaths, and we had an otherwise healthy person who got the flu and then got a separate strain of the flu who died here in Maryland, I believe. And the flu season's not yet over. What precautions are you taking, Danielle?
It's not. I got my flu shot, and my son did too, thank goodness. So we've been fine up to this point, but I have to say it's affected even my business. I've had clients cancel meetings with me because they're in bed with the flu, and It's really bad this year. I mean, it can go on for a week or so, they
Or
say,
more.
until or more.
Yeah.
And there, like you mentioned, there could be another strain. I think they call it the B strain that could continue on through the rest of the season.
Ron?
I don't know. Look at the medicine that's being sold. Look at the doctor visits. It's just something that happens every year, every 2-3 years. People sell more of this and more of that. I don't know.
Well, from what I
Sometimes I question
understand-
this whole thing.
Did
of
you get a flu
what
shot?
happens? I did not.
Neither did I.
Did you get the flu yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Ron, did you get the flu yet?
I don't have a piece of wood to knock.
There you go. It's fake wood, but let's try it.
No,
All right. Okay, Maryland Senate approves delay of sick leave bill implementation, but it was too little too late because it took effect February 11th. So,
well, actually, it didn't. It doesn't take effect with 190 days after a certain date. So while it may go into effect, it still won't start till July.
But
But there's still problems.
there is problems, and
Yes.
from what I understand, the state's really not ready for it either.
Yeah.
Right. And they're also saying employers, what is it? You have to have 15 or more
15.
Yes.
employees. They're not seeing the readiness for them being prepared for it.
Yeah. By the way, I have to plug the Hagerstown, Washington County Chamber of Commerce. They had a really good eggs and issues presentation on this morning, and actually it'll be podcast on Antietam's podcast site. So if you are interested, please check that out. It was an hour and a half, and it was packed full of good information. All right, Equifax breach exposed more than originally suggested. I don't know how it could expose anymore. What was the number? I don't remember the number. but
145 million, 145 million.
Yeah, that's what, roughly a little less than half the population of the United States. That's pretty scary. And now they're saying there's more out there. You know, I was recently hacked. I don't think because of an Equifax breach. Mine, I think somebody put a scanner or a skimmer on a credit card at a gas terminal that I was visiting. But this is scary stuff.
They're getting everything from social security numbers to your credit card, address, driver's license. Yeah.
You really have to be careful where you shop nowadays.
Even online.
Even online, well, especially online.
Especially online, and I've seen some applications that you can get for your PC in order to make the purchases. I don't know if it's
More
called
secure,
encrypted, but
right.
more secure.
But then but there seems to be a way around everything. So I don't know. Okay, coming up next, WTF? What the flip side? The week's craziest news stories. We'll be back in 3 minutes with those reports. Stay with us.